Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Weekly Wise. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year celebration. Happy New Year. We're glad to be back with you in 2016. As you'll notice, we have things set up a little bit different tonight. I don't know if all of you watching noticed on the Facebook page, but we had a change of plans in the last little bit. And so we're going to do Weekly Wise a little bit different. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. First, I'm going to tell you, for those who don't know, and for those who have heard us 100 times, how Weekly Wise got started. So back in April of last year, we hosted an event at our home where we gave away tons and tons and tons of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. It's a little bit crazy and a whole lot of fun, and something that we love to do. And so we got done with that event and found ourselves with 4 freezers full of ice cream and wondered what on earth to do with it. Because, you know, you can eat so much ice cream, but holy cow, 4 freezers? That's a ton. So one night we were discussing, we knew we wanted to share ice cream as part of our business. And that sounds kind of confusing. Not sell ice cream, but at business events, give away ice cream. But we were trying to figure out what those business events got to look like, and Weekly Wise was what we came up with. And so we've enjoyed ourselves, and we've learned a lot. We've had fantastic speakers. If you are just joining us recently for the first time or pretty new to Weekly Wise, I encourage you to go back and watch some of the old lectures. There's a lot of really great ones. As a little side note about Matt and me, Matt and Bonnie Parks were the host and hostess here, and we have 4 little kids, and we don't get babysitters for Weekly Wise. So we have 2-year-old Benjamin here trying to express his feelings too. So that comes along with the territory of coming to Weekly Wise. So tonight, we were really looking forward to listening to a friend of ours come and speak, and it turned out to not work out. And so she's not able to come tonight, and we didn't want to cancel for those who were already coming. And I think a few people are on their way to come live if they show up. And so we decided we still wanted to go on with it, and so we're just going to have a discussion about the topic. And I have no idea what she was going to say. I'm sure it was going to be wonderful, but I don't know what she was going to say. And Matt said to me, how can we talk about somebody else's why? I said, we can't. We don't know what their why is. We can't talk about their why, but we can discuss their topic. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So I wonder if, while Matt just introduces the topic a little, if I can just go get Benjamin settled so that we don't have him going on in the background the whole time.
Sure. Well, so the topic for this evening is becoming incorruptible. Is it possible? And that is, to me, a fascinating idea, a fascinating topic. And I'm a bit sad to get beginning without Bonnie here, just for the sake of not reproducing discussion, and I know that she would be able to build off anything I say, probably very wisely and insightfully. The idea of becoming incorruptible, when we were informed that that was the original topic of this evening, I had a couple thoughts just on my own about what that might mean. And you know, again, we don't know what she would have said, but we'll just share our own thoughts. Is that to be incorruptible to me means you're always, for one, always in integrity. And for 2, that integrity, you're acting according to the intuition and inspiration that you receive. That you act on it. If you're continually acting on that, then you're not going to be corrupted. So things some consequences of that, for example, on the flip side, is that when we have an intuition, a sense to do something, we're inspired to take an action, and we do not, we betray ourselves, then we could say that in that moment we have become in some little way, corrupted. And that corruption needs repentance. Whether it's whether you view that from a religious sense and the repentance from that sense, or you just view it as a change of heart that needs to happen, whatever your views are. So what happens is when we do that, though, when we betray ourselves, then that puts us suddenly in a unique position where we no longer are able to see the world clearly. And here's what I mean by that. If you can imagine, just come up with a scenario that, I'm walking along and someone nearby me trips, or say I see someone that has tripped and has books all over that they're collecting their things or something like that, and I have a sense to help them. But then I instead don't honor that sense and I walk on by. Now, what am I going to do up here as a result? Well, I'm going to justify my actions so that I can feel like what I did was right, even though I betrayed myself. I need to justify it so that everything can look right in the world in my eyes. So I want to basically, in a skewed way, view that little bit of corruption that has entered my life in that aspect, and I want to make myself believe and see myself as not corrupted, which does not work, but that's what we try to do as humans so very often. And so I will probably say things to myself like, well, I'm in a hurry, and I just need to, I need to get where I'm going, and that's important for me. Or I will say something like, oh, she or he was fine. He's going to get his stuff, and someone else was stopping to help, so it's not a big deal. They're going to be taken care of and just fine. Or I might say, well, that person, maybe if that person wasn't so clumsy or wasn't trying to do so much, they wouldn't have spilled all that stuff all over the place.
So when you're mad at him.
Yeah, all sorts of different things. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm dehumanizing the other person involved, or I may be dehumanizing myself, depending on the situation. So in that sense, when I think about what is it to become corruptible, as far as incorruptible and corruptible, to be corrupted is to betray ourselves. When we betray ourselves, in just a little sense, we are in that little sense corrupted, and that corruption needs to be turned into corruption. And Benjamin needs his mama.
Do you want to sit on my lap? Do you want to say hi? Will that help you? No, you don't. Okay, we'll just snuggle back here. Will that work for you? Okay. I really like that, Matt, and thank you for sharing all that. When I was thinking about becoming incorruptible, I went a little bit of a different way, although it relates, it's similar. I was thinking about this concept of perfection, because another way of explaining incorruptible seems to me like it would be perfect. And so I was thinking about perfect and what perfect means. And lately I've changed the definition of perfect for me. It used to be that perfect means you never make any mistakes ever, period. Everything you do is always the absolute best thing you can do for every situation. And there can't be any negative consequences of it because you just did everything perfectly. But that wasn't really working for me, because then I thought that was some kind of standard to live up to. And I don't live up to that standard. So it wasn't really working. So lately I've taken on this concept of perfect as whatever just is, whatever reality is. And so if things are falling apart and people are not behaving the way I think they should, or if I am not behaving the way that I think I should, it can still be perfect. And I think this goes really well along with what Matt's saying, that we're in different places at different times in our lives. We're making progress, hopefully, unless we're making a lot of choices that make us digress. But most of us are making progress towards becoming better and better people, to becoming more the people we want, to having the lives that we want, the results in our lives that we want. And as we continue to progress, we raise our level of what we can and can't do. And so another way of saying what Matt's talking about of whether we betray ourselves or not is honoring ourselves. So the opposite of betraying ourselves would be honoring ourselves. And so to me, a perfect day is a day in which I honor myself, which means I make choices that are good for me and good for the people around me based on what I know and my current skill level, based on what I feel inspired to do for that day. So what it looks like in my day-to-day life is many times in a day, I will quickly and just quietly go into myself or say a prayer and say, would this honor me? When I have a choice, perhaps when I finish something that I wanted to get done and I know I could either do this or I could do this next, I'll often stop and say, what does it honor me to do? And or another way is to say, what would honor God for me to do? Because God cares about the details of our lives and he wants us to make good choices. Sometimes I find that either choice would honor me and I just get to choose. Other times I find this choice would really honor me and this one not as much. Or I find I'm thinking of a specific thing and I find that it doesn't honor me to do that thing. And so to me, if we are honoring ourselves over and over and over through the day, to the level we are able to the understanding that we currently have, then we are not being corrupted. So I think we can be incorruptible in segments of time and even in things. We can be incorruptible for that hour where we honored ourselves for the whole hour and behaved the way we wanted to, felt the way we wanted to, kept an attitude that we want to keep, and did things that honored us. So I think we can also be incorruptible in certain things. There are some things that we can just do perfectly. Frankly, for me, it doesn't feel like there are very many things that I do perfectly. But, and of course, this all depends on our value system too, what perfect even gets to look like, what that standard is. And we don't get to choose for each other, we get to just choose for ourselves, find out the answers that we want to choose to adhere to. Whether it's trying to follow a higher power or whether it's trying to just follow ourselves, everyone chooses what their standard is. And so I think we can be perfect in some of those things in our standard. For instance, one of the things in my standard and my value system is to not take things like drugs and alcohol and put them in my body. And I have a 100% record of not doing drugs. Isn't that awesome? Like, I am perfect at not doing drugs. And this isn't to say anything bad about people who aren't perfect at it or who haven't struggled with that or who don't have that in their value system. But that's in my value system. And I found for me, that's something I could be perfect at. And that's something to celebrate. That's something exciting, to not be corruptible in that way. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't be corrupted, but so far, I've been incorruptible about taking drugs.
So what is the difference between living not corrupted versus becoming incorruptible?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's the answer?
I just came up with the question. I strongly believe that the questions we ask are often much more important than the answers as they get us thinking and as we discover. I think of examples that I know in the scriptures who say that their comment that their faith began to be unshakable, or their faith was unshakable. And I think of that just another version of saying their faith was incorruptible. Same concept to me. Mm-hmm. And what did it take for them to get to that point? My perception of it, and I certainly don't feel like I have a stamp of an answer, but my sense of it is that they had created habits that were so ingrained, that they practiced so much, that in certain areas, just like you were saying about drugs, in their areas of their faith, of their belief system, they were so completely set that they could not fall. They had ingrained those habits that they chose. Their choices were going to be such that they had reinforced it. It was infallible, essentially. That little aspect of it was incorruptible, and that specific thing in their life.
Yeah. So it seems to me that the journey of life, as we are trying to progress to become more incorruptible, that we can improve and come closer to incorruptibility in two ways. One is be incorruptible for longer, and another is to be incorruptible in more aspects of our lives. And as we do both of those things, we're becoming more and more incorruptible. So you said, can we get all the way to incorruptible? My personal view is that while we are on earth, we don't become completely, perfectly incorruptible in all ways and at all times, but that we can become incorruptible in the sense of honoring ourselves for longer and longer periods of time. Longer times between the times when we dishonor ourselves, and that we can be incorruptible in more and more things. So maybe at one point in your life you struggle with this certain behavior or attitude or corruptibility, we could say. And as time goes on, and you work at that, and you work at that, and you work at that, you become like the examples Matt was talking about in the scriptures where their faith became unshakable. You become incorruptible and perfect in that particular aspect after a time, after grace and repentance, after lots of effort and goal setting, whatever the process gets to look like for that thing and for you. So I think you can become more and more incorruptible in those two ways.
And what we were saying, excuse me, that I was kind of wanting to come back to as well is, we mentioned behavior. Behavior is part of being incorruptible, but it's not enough on its own, right? If you read things from the Arbinger Institute that talk about this idea of self-betrayal, of honoring yourself, there are two ways to do any behavior, at least. One is from a way of being of seeing people as objects, and another is from a space of seeing people as people, whether it's other people or yourself or even God, seeing these people as people, so to speak. And that way of being, I think that goes back to the example of faith as well, being incorruptible in faith. It has more to do with their way of being than just their behaviors. So, to give an example, using the same example as before, if I walk by someone and I see they drop the things, I have a sense to help them. I could do that in a couple of different ways. I could jump down and help them and be very positive and see this person that is in need, that certainly is on their way, maybe in a hurry, may have whatever needs they have or concerns about the things that they've spilled and cluttered around and want to get it picked up, and how grateful they could feel for someone helping them, and see them as a person that has desires and hopes and dreams, and equal to myself. Or I could jump down and be like, oh, I know I'm supposed to do this. I have the sense to go help them. Fine, I'll do it. But inside I'm like, hurry, just get your stuff together. Okay, good, you're done. Now I can go on with my life. And I'm seeing that person as an obstacle to me getting on to where I want to go. So same behavior, but two completely different ways of being on the inside of me. And I think that's a big difference in corruptible versus incorruptible, is getting to a space where we see people with love. We see people as who they are, as people, equal to ourselves, with hopes, dreams, fears, concerns, all those different kinds of things. And we're seeking to lift and to help wherever our intuition and inspiration leads us to do so. Wherever we're able to honor ourselves and assist others, wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying too then is, in order to honor ourselves and to be incorruptible, it's not just following the senses that we have to do the good things, or to check in and say, does this behavior honor me or not? It's also about our way of being. That needs to honor us too, otherwise we are still being corruptible.
Right. And that,
so, go ahead.
I was going to say that ties into to our belief systems that you mentioned. I'm going to take that on a little different spin. There's belief systems such as our faith, like our spiritual faith, and those belief systems of, this is what I believe to be from God, I believe to be true, and I'm going to stand for what's right. And that's crucial and that's important. Sometimes we take our belief systems that we've gained from growing up, from different experiences, and we give them the same value as this faith in God belief system. And that does not always need to be equated, or it's not serviceable to be on an equal level. Rather, looking at what our beliefs are. For example, share one that I had recently that I recently was able to turn around and change, that's helped me a great deal, is I had this belief that I needed to hate my job. It was crucial, it was imperative that I hate my job. Why? Because if I ever wanted to be financially free, then surely I couldn't love my job, because if I did, I wouldn't want to ever leave it, and I would be in bondage to it. Now that sounds utterly ridiculous.
It's rather backwards.
It is very backwards, right? But that was a belief that I wasn't really conscious of. But that was one I carried with me. And it wasn't until I became conscious of it and worked through it. Actually, it took me a little while to work through, but finally was able to get to the point where I can say, I love my job. I love what I do. I love my job. I love contributing in the way I do. And I look forward to getting to the point where I can do things that are even more meaningful to me in a financially independent space. So that's just one example of a belief that, and the reason I bring this up is lots of times these beliefs are behind our way of being. I was still going to work then and now. The behavior was the same, but the way of being was vastly different, and it impacted my happiness, my joy. It impacted the quality of my life in many ways. So this way of being comes back to, in a lot of ways, these beliefs that are behind what we choose.
So let's get practical for a little bit. You shared a practical example just now. If a person that's listening to this, or say me, wanted to have some practice becoming more incorruptible, and in terms of how we've discussed what it means to be more incorruptible, what's a practical thing we could do to help ourselves become more incorruptible?
It's a really good question.
Matt and I planned none of this. I'm loving the off-the-cuffness of this.
And there is a chat box here for those watching live, and I am keeping my eye on it. So you're very welcome to, on the side of the video, there should be a space for you to, at least if you're watching live, a space for you to type in some comments, and we'd be happy to read those.
Yes, we would.
Excuse me. So how can we become, the question is, how can we become more incorruptible and practical?
Yeah, in a daily kind of way. One way that I thought of is recently with the Limitless organization that we've been working with, one thing that many have been doing is this concept called limitless leaps. And so we'll take these big goals that we'll want to accomplish and we'll do 30-day increments on them. And really what we're saying in essence is, I want to be incorruptible in this way for this amount of time. many of the goals have turned out that way. A friend that we know, that we work with, his limitless sleep is about health, and he has a very specific meal plan, and his limitless sleep was about being 100% in integrity with his meal plan. So as he accomplishes that goal, he is incorruptible at that meal plan. And what confidence boost it builds for you when you are incorruptible in any way, for any period of time. There's a quote that Matt and I have often heard and said, that every measure of self-control leads to a measure of self-respect. It's a wonderful feeling inside when you realize that you've accomplished something, that you've done it perfectly, just how you set out to do. And so when we set our goals in a way that we can succeed perfectly like that, what a great thing.
I also like the quote from, I think it's Emerson, but it might not be, and I'm not going to quote it perfectly right either. But the concept that when we do something once and then we do it again, we're able to do it more easily, not because the nature of the theme changed, but because our ability to perform has increased. Mm-hmm. And you know, having that practice, having that time of, you know, going into integrity, being in integrity in any one thing helps us be stronger at being in integrity with everything. With our goals, people talk about setting New Year's resolutions, and perhaps you set some. I have some in mind. I'm still working on fleshing out that I want to seek for and achieve. And to do that requires conscious effort. It's, you know, I saw a lot of these memes on Facebook of what's coming to you in 2016, and it would have, you know, things we all want: money and wealth and relationship and a great body and all this stuff. And people would comment like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And I, you know, really? If that is what you want, if that's what I want, well, I'm gonna have to do the work to get it. It's not just gonna fall in my lap by wishing. Wishing won't make it so. It's gonna take effort of putting my mind to it, putting my heart into it, really creating a vision of what I want, getting clear on it, having a focus, something to motivate me daily to it. Like Zig Ziglar says, you know, some people complain that motivation wears off, and we say, well, yeah, so does a bath. That's why we recommend it daily. We, you know, doing something to just keep that motivation built up every day, throughout the day, of what are your goals? What do you really want? To be able to go after it and set up a support system that, knowing what it's going to take, or at least giving your best effort of envisioning what it's going to take, doing your best to create that, and then achieve those steps of what it's going to take. That's how we achieve those kinds of goals. I'm not going to put on a lot of muscle if I don't go to the gym consistently, and if I don't, you know, drink protein consistently and eat right and things like that. It's a function of, you know, our results are a function of what we put into it. And again, that goes back to not just action, but also way of being. Mm-hmm. In so many levels, so many aspects.
Yeah, and one thing that you brought up that I really like is this idea that we want to change our belief systems to align them more and more with a belief system that honors us and our value system that we have decided. So sometimes we have this value system, we have this standard that we want to live up to, but sometimes even our unconscious beliefs are out of harmony with that. I believe I talked about that in my first Weekly Wise presentation, that we want to align our thoughts and our ways of thinking with what we really value most. And so as much as that's out of alignment, we come up against struggle in our lives because we think we want to be this way, but then we're really performing down here. It's about the beliefs behind it. And so as Matt and I have learned belief breakthrough, I think that's really a huge part of becoming incorruptible and being able to honor yourself. You find out what honors you better as you break through beliefs, and you have more capacity to honor yourself more. And so you shared a great example about how that happened, that you can honor yourself better at work with the belief that you love work. Totally. And you're more incorruptible at work. So if you think, I should behave this way at work, and your behavior is out of harmony with it, while you have the belief, I hate work, or I'm supposed to hate work, as you change that belief to I love work, your behavior becomes closer and closer to that standard that is your standard. Again, like I said, this is about people choosing what standards they want to live up to. For a long time, I thought everyone should live up to my standard, which I wasn't even succeeding at, but I thought that everyone else should. And it's been really freeing for me to realize everyone gets to choose their own standard. And that is, in fact, as it should be, because it makes people a lot happier doing it the way that they get to do it. And so Belief Breakthrough is another really incredible tool at helping us to be incorruptible. So goal setting and Belief Breakthrough. Any other tools you can just think of off the top of your head that help you in this practical becoming incorruptible?
Remembering to see people as people.
Yeah.
Taking a step back into a space of where I know I love people, where I know, if I'm in a space where I'm frustrated with someone, seeing them as a vehicle or an obstacle in my life or something like that, going to a space where, no, I know this person is a person, I know I have love for them. Let's ponder this situation in a new light from that perspective. Yeah.
Well, at this point, we're going to end this portion of the presentation, the presentation part, which turned into the Matt and Bonnie have a discussion part, which has really been quite enjoyable. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Yeah.
And I think I can speak for Matt too, that he's enjoyed himself. At this point,
we like to do this all the time.
I know,
anyway,
this is like
now we had a
pillow
topic provided. Yeah, this is totally pillow talk for us.
So now we're going to take some time to let you know about some of the things that we've kind of hinted at that we're involved in, that we want to invite you to participate in with us.
Yeah. She mentioned that's pillow talk for us, and that really is true. Sometimes one or both of us is too tired and want to ask this interesting, deep question, and the other will say, I don't want to be philosophical, I'm too tired. We do love to talk about these ideas because we know how it can affect us and make things better for us. And this comes from a space of wanting to develop ourselves, wanting to become the best people we can be. Because at least in one of the beliefs that I have and that I've chosen into and that I love really is that one of the primary characteristics and the fundamental characteristics of the purpose of life is lifelong learning. And it's kind of, I think, maybe a trite phrase to say lifelong learning, but sincerely seeking out learning, education, becoming aware, more present and conscious of what's happening within us. A man named Dieter Uchtdorf, who's a religious leader, once said that the beginning of wisdom, seeing ourselves clearly, is the beginning of wisdom. Seeing ourselves clearly is the beginning of wisdom. And I love that quote. I love that concept that as we see ourselves more clearly, as we become more wise, and as we strive our whole lives long to see what beliefs do we have inside of us that are leading us down paths that aren't helping. What are ways that we're showing up? What are ways that we're acting? What are ways that we're seeing people as objects in ways that we can change, turn our hearts around, become better people? And one organization that has helped us tremendously with that is called Limitless. And that's the shirt I'm wearing is the insignia of it. And Limitless holds regular events. They're once a month. They're 3-day seminar type events where we really focus on digging in and what are these beliefs? What are ways where we're showing up in ways that aren't helping us reach our goals, where we're petering out or chickening out, or just our belief system is completely sabotaging our efforts. Kind of like she was saying about me and work and my performance that I wanted to have there. What are ways that we're doing this? And in fact, could it be affecting our results so significantly that we're not creating the wealth that we want, we're not creating the body that we want, we're not creating the connection in our relationships or the intimacy that we want, we're not creating the sense of personal power and pride in our efforts in our lives. I'm not talking about the pride that compares, the negative pride, but the pride of workmanship, of ownership, of living in a way that you're proud to be alive. Could all these things be affecting that? Could we be sabotaging these areas of our lives? And truth be told, we all are. We all are. And that's why this is a work that we feel pertains to everyone. It's not I mean, yes, if it resonates with you, but at some point in life, I hope it resonates with you. I hope you feel the urge to develop yourself, to become a better person, because there's no way that through the entirety of your life, there's not some way, some place that someone can help you point out a blind spot and say, hey, I noticed this, here's some feedback, or help just facilitate you being able to see that blind spot.
Can I just jump in here and say, too, that I could easily hear people say, well, I developed myself, I read books, or I go to church. For a long time, that was my whole personal development journey, was going to church.
It's wonderful.
It's a fantastic one.
We highly recommend church.
Yeah. And if church isn't your thing, that's okay too. But for us, it's been really fantastic in developing ourselves. I mean, that's what personal development is, developing ourselves personally. What I have found, though, is that there's levels of awareness of ourselves and understanding of who we are, what our natural expression in life is, and what our limiting beliefs and what our enabling and noble beliefs are, and that we don't see it all about ourselves clearly. And going to church or other ways helps with that. This is another way, and in my opinion, it's one of the most fantastic and effective ways at helping see ourselves more clearly. So it's like I've been going to church for my whole 34 years, and I've learned a ton about myself. I've developed tons of skills. I've broken through tons of fears. I've done many things that I was scared to do and was pleased that I did. I've set many goals and accomplished them. I found so much more joy in my life than if I hadn't been going to church. That's true for me.
Yes.
That's part of my journey. And all of that said, there was more that I could do to develop myself. There is more still. There are limiting beliefs that show up. There are behavior patterns that I fall into that I want to gain more awareness of, and I just want to break through them and be done with them, because I want to be happy. What this all boils down to is we all want to be happy. And I know as I live more aligned with who I truly am and who I'm intended to be, I will continue to be more and more happy for longer periods of time, in more areas. So the thing about Limitless that I have not found in many other places, there's a couple of things. One is a very intense focus. It's like in your day-to-day life, you don't recognize so many of your patterns because you're just in it, and you can't, it's like you're not stepping back.
It's like a fish swimming in water that doesn't know what water is.
Right, exactly. And so Limitless provides that step back where you are not in your day-to-day interactions. You're not with the people that you're normally with, that you may be struggling with. You're not following your eating patterns, maybe. You're not, a lot of things different because you're in a different environment than your normal day-to-day life. And from that space, you're asked questions and given information that gets your mind looking and get your heart opening to answers about yourself that you just don't find in your day-to-day life. I've found greater answers and insights from being at Limitless than almost any other place in my life, and quicker, like more insights in a very short, concentrated period of time, which has been fantastic. I talk about how I don't do drugs, but I'm like this druggie on Limitless because of the massive impact it has on my life. The other thing is that it provides this space of an incredible amount of love. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like it, as far as a huge group of people that don't have to know each other at all, who can show up with so much love. Nowhere else have I seen that specific dynamic and felt that impact. And it blows me away. It's so incredible. And so if you think, well, maybe I don't need that because I do this and this and this and this, come and try it out. Come and see. There's more that you can experience that you probably are not even thinking of yet. I know that's true of me. Every time I go to Limitless, I realize I didn't even know that was a part of me. I didn't know that was in the realm of possibility for me.
Yeah, each time she's come back, she says, Matt, let me introduce you to the new me. Because there's been a number of times that she's gone that I haven't, because I've been at work and haven't had the time off to go to every single event. But every time she comes home, she's, let me introduce you to the new me. And so this, now you're probably wondering, okay, so there's this 3-day event. It's called Limitless. Great. What's the details? How much does it cost? All of that. Fair questions. It's a $500 ticket, $499 for 3 days. However, if you are watching this before the next event, which the next event is January 21st through the 23rd of 2016, we would be happy to make available. We have been gifted as a Christmas gift, just barely. We were gifted some free tickets. And if you are watching this and you feel prompted and inspired to come, then please reach out to us. Send us a private message on Facebook, Matthew Parks, Bonnie Parks. Find us, reach out to us, or post a note on the Weekly Wise page and say, hey, I would love a ticket. And we would be happy to hook you up, completely free.
Along those lines, as you've listened to tonight's Weekly Wise, or as we've talked about Limitless, if there's someone that's come to mind who you know is in that space where they are not quite happy with their life and they're just trying to figure it out. One thing specifically about me has been a big struggle with anxiety and depression, and Limitless has been, the concepts that I've learned, the skills that I've developed, and the breakthroughs I've had, I think have been the #1 thing in helping me cope with and then overcome in many ways and make great strides to where I'm becoming incorruptible in anxiety and depression. I'm still on the journey, but let me tell you, it looks a lot better now than it used to, by quite a bit. And so that's one example. Many people who are struggling with their mental and emotional health find answers, peace, direction, skills at Limitless. So that's just one example. If someone has come to your mind that you think, oh man, I heard them just the other day saying that they want this in their life, or they want something more, or they just feel stuck, or a lot of that kind of language. Anyone you feel inspired to share this with, feel free to let them know, and they can private message us or send them the link to this Weekly Wise so they can watch the video and learn about it themselves.
Yep. So with that, thank you much. So glad to have you. And until 2 weeks.
Yes. So we've decided that we're changing a few things about how we're running our business, and Matt said we're figuring out New Year's resolutions. We are both deep thinking types that sometimes like to think and think and think and think. So we're both figuring some things out. And one of those things that we've been figuring out is what we want to do in our business and with Weekly Wise lecture series, we've realized that for the time being, we're going to switch it to every 2 weeks. And we think that that will honor us better and help us to develop some of the other things that we're doing. So for the time being, that's the plan. So we will next meet, let's see, today's the 5th.
I believe so.
Today's the 5th, so we'll next be meeting on January 19th.
Or that Tuesday, if it's not the 19th. And that's going to be
Yes, today's the 5th. And so January 19th, and we're going to be hearing from Sherry LeBaron. And did she give you her?
Yes.
We don't have it right here, but we'll create the event soon and post that up right here in the Weekly Wise Lecture Series Facebook page. So we'd love to have you back to hear Sherry in 2 more weeks. And to eat ice cream, of course.
Yep. I'm going to go have some Ben & Jerry's. And would love if you wanted to come join me next time.
Bye.